check on Bitcoin this morning, and it was an interesting month for sure. April coming back up a little bit, and you see the dip right at the beginning of this month as well, and now above $93,000 there. And take a look at how Bitcoin versus gold fared in the last 12 months, both up over 40%, while gold has seen a steady rise on increasing tariff uncertainty, while Bitcoin's moves were a bit more volatile, and I think we see that coming given the crypto nature of it. Crypto bulls made numerous bullish calls on Bitcoin prices last year during its historic run-up to record high above $100,000. One of them was Peter Chung, the head of research at Presto, an algo trading firm, on his call for Bitcoin in late December last year. Take a listen.
With the BTC, our target is 210,000.
Excuse me? 210,000?
Yes, yes.
Whoa. Okay.
Well, it's not that crazy. I mean, it's about 100% increase from where we are,
okay.
And Bitcoin has done crazier things in the past.
And we've got Peter Chung back into the studio, this time in Hong Kong set. And as mentioned, he's the head of research at Presto, an algo trading firm specializing in digital asset. So here we are, and you know what, late December last year, it was around the same price level, 93, just above 93,000. So was there any change? Has there been any change in your call for Bitcoin this year?
Yeah, thanks for having me back. And actually, yeah, we have not changed our market outlook. So Bitcoin target price remains 210,000. And driven by institutional adoption and global liquidity expansion. For ETH, our target price was based on ETH to BTC, the BTC to ETH ratio, which was 0.05. We still maintain that as well, reflecting the community's efforts to address value leakage problem. I mean, granted, not everything turned out the way we expected so far this year, especially the macro outlook and the market reaction to it. But I think in hindsight, I think it was actually a healthy correction, which have paved the way for the further re-rating of the Bitcoin as a mainstream asset.
I think our mission so far this month has been trying to figure out, was there anything broken in the market? Let it be confidence or some kind of global order, and how these assets are positioned in people's portfolio. And we were just talking about the comparison between gold and Bitcoin. What happened this month? Because gold ran, Bitcoin didn't. Now it's trying to catch up. Is that what's happening? And do you think Bitcoin will outrun gold for the rest of this year?
Yeah, so I think Bitcoin has two faces, digital gold and risk-on assets. And most of the time, Bitcoin behaves like a risk-on assets. Because it's a network whose value comes from the user adoption and network effect, very similar to an internet company, for instance. But it was during a crisis that the Bitcoin behaves like a gold, because it's designed after the physical gold in terms of like a digital scarcity and so forth. But these moments are rare. So if only happened when the market has doubts about the stability of the US dollar-dominated financial system, like when Russia invaded Ukraine in early 2022, or when Silicon Valley banks collapsed in early 2023. And then most recently, in the aftermath of the Liberation Day tariff announcements. So I think the Bitcoin is just doing what it does, which is, sometimes it acts like a risk-on asset most of the time, but during the crisis, it acts like a gold, and then that's what we saw in the month of April.
So I guess for your call, I mean, for Bitcoin to get to that 210,000 level, I think we're in a ride for a major crisis. But the U.S. administration and the Trump administration's approach to crypto is fascinating, because they're saying we're going to use Bitcoin, but we're going to enforce a dollar hegemony. How does that work between Bitcoin versus the U.S. dollar? I feel like there is a lot of speculation out there in terms of what President Trump wants to do because of what's going on with the U.S. trade deficit and so on. Do you have a line around that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I think one of the reasons for the confusion is because Bitcoin is described as a cryptocurrency, and I think it's a misnomer. Because when people hear the word currency, people think in terms of a medium of exchange.
Right.
But it's only one function of a currency. There are the other two important functions, which are store of value, which, by the way, must come before something becomes a medium of exchange.
Right.
And then there's unit of account. Now, because people have this distorted view about what currency is, people think there's a conflict when Trump is trying to promote Bitcoin, but at the same time also talks about US dollar hegemony. But it's two different things, and I think Jerome Powell put it perfectly. Mm-hmm. He said, Bitcoin is not trying to compete with the US dollars, but with the gold. And that's what Trump understands and what he's trying to do. So that's why he announced the strategic Bitcoin reserve, and also even ordered the Commerce and the Treasury Secretary to investigate ways to add more in a budget neutral way.
Hey, Peter, good morning. Great to see you again. Listen, I got two questions for you. Probably won't be surprised to know. One, I want to know your current as we speak call on BTC, whether it's still 2,100 or even higher now. And two, I want you to talk to us about the supply side, not so much the demand side, right? Let's bring up that chart that Sherry was looking at a couple of minutes ago, gold versus BTC. You know, Peter, for gold, right, we've been talking so much about the demand side. Everybody wants gold because everybody's scared of the dollar, right? But the supply side is interesting as well because, physical gold, that's one of the reasons why gold mining stocks are not doing so well. They've lagged far behind the price of the physical metal simply because miners cannot seem to get it out of the ground, which leads me to a supply question on BTC, right? Supply of BTC depends on being able to mine the coin. That depends on having access to power, right? I'm wondering, with this explosion of AI going on, how much competition there is for power, AI versus Bitcoin mining, and whether at this stage Bitcoin mining is losing out. Because if it is, that only would tend to support the price of BTC. What do you think?
Yeah, so it's two different things. You talked about supply and you talked about demand. And so what's important for Bitcoin mining is if the price continues to escalate, it becomes more profitable for the miners to get involved. So I understand there's going to be competition for the electricity power, but if the Bitcoin continues to be adopted as a mainstream asset and then the price continues to escalate, these miners will try to decide which way is a more profitable way of utilizing their electricity, that means that the Bitcoin mining does not have to be necessarily cannibalized by the activities on the AI front.
When we were starting the conversation and your call for Bitcoin, and I know that it's a very volatile asset, and you said it in December as well that it's not too much of a crazy idea for Bitcoin to do that. But what would be the narrative around Bitcoin? I mean, any asset for that kind of run-up, it would need would it be the crisis that you were talking about for the markets, that all these other risk assets are selling off and Bitcoin is really the asset class that we need to go for because it's different from the dollar, it's not traditional, it's decentralized?
Yeah, so in a way, Bitcoin benefits by having these two phases I talked about.
Yes.
Yeah, so what Bitcoin is going through right now is, I'd like to put it as going through the natural money evolution. So when we hear the word money, there are two types of money in the world, two types of currency, bottom up and top down. Mm-hmm. Top down is the fiat currencies. And most of us have only experienced this top-down type because we were not born 100 years ago when we still lived under gold standard. But the mankind has spent 95% of their existence under the first type, which is a bottom-up currency, where the society comes to a consensus on a certain object being a currency. And this type of money, it takes a long time to come into existence. And usually it goes through three stages. the three functions of money that I mentioned, which is store of value, medium of exchange, and unit of account.
Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. That was Peter Chung from Presto. Squawk Box is coming right back.